everyone. Today we are going to have some comparisons of Chinese and Western literature. First, we are going to know two styles of poetry. One is Chinese 绝句. The other is Western sonnet. Okay, do you know what is exactly 绝句? Let's get to know its definition. And these two pictures show us two famous 绝句 poems. And 绝句is a style of poetry that is popular among Chinese poets in the Tang Dynasty. Okay. Yeah, we know in China, all children are familiar or recite some poems written in Tang Dynasty. And we know most famous Chinese ancient poets lived in Tang Dynasty, right? Okay. 绝句 poems are always in the style of quatrains. Okay, here, quatrains. Quatrains means a poem consisting of 4 lines. It means 四行诗. A matched pair of couplets. I think you are familiar with this word, couplet. Yes, during the Spring Festival, on each front door of a house, there will be a pair of couplets, 对联, 对句, with each line consisting of 5 or 7 syllables. The 5-syllable form is called 五绝, and the 7-syllable form is 七绝. And here, this is a very famous Chinese 五绝 poem. I think all of you are familiar with this poem, right? Yes. And this is a very famous Chinese poet. Yes. And this is a typical 7-syllable form. Okay. Limited to exactly 20 or 28 characters. Writing a 绝句 requires the author to make full use of each character to create a successful poem. This encourages authors to use symbolic language to a high degree. Symbolic language, 象征性的语言. Okay. Many Chinese poets compose 绝句 on the topics of philosophy, religion, emotions, history, vast landscapes, and so on. So these are the common topics of Chinese poems. Okay. And most well-known 绝句 poets include, you know, who are they? Yeah. You know this one? Okay, yes, he is 杜甫. Okay. And this one, are you familiar? Yes, he is 杜甫. Yes. And this one, 李白. This one, do you know this one? Yes, he is 李商隐. Yes. And this one maybe you are not very familiar with, right? Yes, 王昌龄. And this one, he is Wang Wei. And we are familiar with his 5-syllable form poem, right? Okay, now let's get to know something about Western sonnet. Okay. Sonnet is the fixed verse form of Italian origin, consisting of 14 lines. That is what we say, 14行诗, that are typically 5-foot iambics, rhyming according to a prescribed scheme. This is a typical sonnet. And the sonnet is unique among poetic forms in Western literature, in that it has retained its appeal for major poets for 5 centuries. The form seems to have originated in the 13th century among the Sicilian school of court poets. Court poets. It means 宫廷诗人. It reached its highest expression in the 14th century in the poems of Petrarch. And you know, Shakespeare is a great poet of sonnet. The sonnet was introduced to England. The new forms precipitated the great Elizabethan flowering of lyric poetry, and the period marked the peak of the sonnet's English popularity. Next, we are going to compare 2 famous playwrights. One is Chinese, Tang Xianzu. The other is very famous British. He is William Shakespeare. Okay? Do you know something about Tang Xianzu? Okay, everyone will say, oh, he has written, yes, 牡丹亭. Yes, that's it. So now let's first get to know something about Tang Xianzu. Yeah. This is a portrait of Tang Xianzu. He is called Shakespeare in the East. He's a Chinese playwright of the Ming Dynasty. Okay, Ming Dynasty. He is a native of Linchuan, Jiangxi, and his career as an official consisted principally of low-level positions. That means he's not a very successful politician, while he is a great playwright, yes. Okay. He retired in 1598 and returned to his hometown where he focused on writing. Yes, besides 牡丹亭, this is also a very important work written by him. His major plays are collectively called 4 Dreams because of the theme of dreams play in the plot of each one. All of them are still performed in synthesis or in adapted full version on the Chinese Kunqu opera stage. Yeah, this is, okay, 牡丹亭. Its English name is Peony Pavilion, yes. His masterpiece, 牡丹亭, or the Peony Pavilion, has been translated into English several times, and each of the other plays has been translated once. And William Shakespeare, I think all of you are very familiar with this one, right? Yes, he has a very great influence on world literature. William Shakespeare, English poet. He is a great poet of sonnet, dramatist, and an actor. He is often called the English national poet and considered by many greatest dramatists of all time. Shakespeare occupies a unique position in the world literature. He is a writer of great intellectual rapidity, perceptiveness, and poetic power. Roughly, he has written 37 plays in his life, including 4 great tragedies and 4 great comedies. So let's get to know what are his famous 4 tragedies and what are the 4 great comedies. Okay, Shakespeare's 4 great tragedies include King Lear, Hamlet, Macbeth and Othello. And his 4 great comedies include As You Like It, that is what we say, 皆大欢喜. Twelfth Night, Merchant of Venice, and Dream of a Midnight in Summer, 仲夏夜之梦. And these are his 4 great comedies. Why we say Shakespeare is so great? The art form into which his creative energies went was not remote and bookish, but involved the vivid stage impersonation of human beings, commanding sympathy and inviting vicarious participation. Thus, Shakespeare's translation can survive into other languages and different culture. Okay. Last, we compare 2 writing techniques. One is imaginary, the other is symbolism. Let's get to know what is imaginary. Okay, as you can see from this picture, this is a very famous Chinese ancient work, right? As one of the most important concepts in classical Chinese poetry, imagery is a frequent method of artistic conveyance, poetic aesthetics, and expression vehicle. Poetic imagery is the object or experience that a poet is contemplating. In one of ancient Chinese books, 戏词, you know this book? Yes. Image is defined as the symbol with the nature of representation. It is said that after observing the complicated reality, the sage can accordingly make the imitation and creation in his works. As an important literary term, image is used to denote a verbal expression that evokes a mental picture or recalls a physical sensation. The participation of imagery in Chinese poetry makes Chinese classical poetry more famous for its concreteness and vividness. That is a typical Chinese writing skill or technique. And symbolism, this is a typical Western one. Symbolism is the use of symbols to signify ideas or qualities by giving them symbolic meanings that are different from their literal sense. This is a picture adopting the technique of symbolism. Symbolism can take different forms. Generally, it is an object, an action, or an event representing another object to give it an entirely different meaning that is much deeper and more significant. Symbolism gives a writer freedom to add double levels of meanings, double levels of meanings to his work. A literal one that is self-evident. One is literal. And the symbolic one, whose meaning is far more profound than the literal one. You know this famous novel written by Hawthorne? Okay, in this novel, the letter A symbolizes adultery. Yes. And this is Shakespeare's famous comedy. Yes, as you like it. In this play, stage, its literal meaning is 舞台. Yes, while in this play, stage symbolizes the world. Yes, we often compare the whole world as a big stage. And the players symbolizes men and women. So that means in this world, everyone is an actor, is an actress. Okay, so that's all for today's lecture. Thank you for your attention. See you next time.